Everyone's standing. Clara, I don't think I picked on you to sing "O Canada," have I? Recently?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, guess what?
I'm worse than
Now remember, guys and girls, it's in all of us command, not in all thy sons
I was at
command.
the game last night and they still sang it.
Did they, will it?
Yes, they
Well,
did.
that's sorry to hear.
Sorry, we're a slow learner. Yeah.
Okay, Clara, lead the way.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all of us commend. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Very nice. Please find your glass and join me in a toast to the Queen and to Canada and to the Kitchener Rangers. They need our help. Please bow your heads. May the sharing of food foster peace and understanding among us. May it bring us to the recognition that we depend on each other for all the good we can ever hope to receive, and that all the good we can hope to accomplish rests in helping others in turn. Amen. If you are a member and you have brought a guest today, please introduce him or her. Karen?
I've brought my friend Bob Denton today as my guest.
Welcome, Bob. Thank you. Any other members have a guest?
I got Paul Poo out here.
Thank you.
Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Rick.
And I understand our speaker is on his way, so he'll be formally introduced when he gets here. So, Rotarians, please join me in welcoming Bob. And Paul. And Karen, why don't you show Bob how to lead us to the buffet?
Karen, follow me.
Look at Leo, he's right there. Leo.
You know our guest is here. We should wait for our guest. So where's your father-in-law? Is he on his way back? No idea. We're usually coming back. We usually like sneaking in right after. Yeah, usually they're back about that. Usually they're back about that.
Anyway, I'm gonna have to look at it. Or exchange for me like 3 times. You know, in one sense, couple grandkids.
So yeah, one of your appointments.
We're at Hey! Happy anniversary. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. 42? Yes. I was got married at 10 years I can't afford 47 roses.
Number 2 was the skin was funny.
Do that for playing somebody else fixes.
So once you get beyond the obvious top 10 you know the players in the
Wasn't it nice?
Did you know? Did you know that was a great stadium? The other startup or wow, it would be intense. So you can add a few more now.
counting on our pool. Yeah.
All that whole neighborhood was
And then there's another kid who was at his son.
I'm sitting here. You are fine right wherever you are.
It was eaten by everybody.
Oh, thank you.
Tomatoes are not close. This morning. Cleaning down from $2.5 million.
It hasn't done a thing to it.
Yeah, and the whole. Yeah.
And then they went to Renderson.
$2.5 million.
And now he's retired. So they don't build his house around the house.
No, he was younger.
Down 60.
Never ate.
Harris does full head of black hair.
Turns out Waterloo has a really good head problem.
You can throw the ball.
Did you know that in terms of height, you can bring it around?
Tom and I were roommates in college.
I only know because Poppy's
And
Waterloo education. Not WCI.
So wasn't that a good offer?
I was the only problem with the line.
You know.
You
Remember that I used to
What of course, Smart City turns out. Top of the way, hydroxy. Below the provincial man. They're planning to really improve education.
Yeah, that's right. No, he's a third-time roommate.
Oh, yeah.
He basically said he passes across the school. Oh, Bob, no, everybody knows.
Like
10 o'clock, the door.
An email
Bell, right?
there.
And I went answered the door. Where's now? He's at the cottage. And he broke down and then told me, I just got one of those driving the big old wagon, 350 in the back. Halfway home, Jane said, oh, by the way, I want a divorce.
No, we did. You brought our resume. I told him to give it to you. I guess you weren't in that day.
And I had to go to Charlotte, and I did a whole two-hour interview on
How old do you have to be a worker?
I was sharing, I really like the picture.
No, I want my son to have a job.
He gave me quite an interview.
Yeah, I'm in first place. I'm not even waiting.
Fertilizers.
We have an idea.
Yeah. Troy's really, Troy's from the side. Dylan is big. What happened to him? Get it set.
Where did you go wrong?
Must have been
Been a game 7.
I went to the city of Cambridge. The food was
Adequate.
Well, barely.
very, they need to do two sides. Everyone's going to do it, people serve two sides. They probably said it. You know,
4 of us are going to
I can just set up to the end, and then there's a everyone stops talking. I gotta get out of there. Well, you remember that too? No, he would have been in his school. Yeah, there, I've always liked their breakfast. What I did, their family used to have there.
They have to be a while ago. But I thought they were it's kind of a rock. He's a rock slash combination. But
yeah, at least 3 years.
Get them out in the open. Get them out down.
You and I are talking about
David DeWar's
Too many introductions, too.
We're learning from you, though. You're starting to go off script, and that's dangerous for you.
one time I was directing a Falconer,
You know, when they went off, they got laughs.
figured it out between
Like they made more
you
fun.
can't between like 13 when I got
I'm not sure they were laughing with
35 at the time. I know 27 at the job.
That's the rest.
Too long of intros.
Well, I was waiting for the
Majority of that.
Yeah, everybody.
library board.
Board trustee. And then all the kids.
And then all the people who don't.
Board counselors. And I'm sitting there thinking, assistant governor, what about me?
All these different
They should have introduced you.
Keep it low profile. Only another 2 months.
Went pretty far down the food chain on the municipal side.
When I was
Fire chief, even introduced the police chief, and he wasn't there.
And someone else, the ambulance. So-and-so from the ambulance might be here later.
Yeah, so
other row.
we'd rather have them both.
And she's not great on the mic. She's very nice.
We'd rather have them both.
Looking around, her voice is wandering.
They have machines working out back then. I was 13.
There's a lot of them.
5:45. Drive us an hour and a half. I don't know if you remember. A bunch of like delinquents. Chat virtually did that. We got $7 an hour. We thought and a free hat. That's what it was. That's what it was. Working there, I worked for my grandfather. We were paid the he paid me separate dollars. I figured out I made 2 cents an hour. That's where I worked for my dad. 35 cents an hour. They raised it. The last time we had military, I took the last 10%. I read my commission land up way better at it. But it wasn't enough. It was small.
Chicken pie pie.
It was
Liver and onion.
it would be $4 and a nice big money to just do it. But I thought, again, the counting was not my idea. Because I thought it was great.
Hey, brother. We're all analyzing the butter chart. And I gotta remember if I go for dessert to get ahead of you. It wasn't to buy the drugs, it was to buy the munchies. They were just freaking out. Yeah.
And I grabbed the last one. I got another. He never forgave me.
What's
Keep it there, but keep it locked on. Different tone.
My center Did you know this guy? Apparently. Reluctantly admitted himself. Oh, here, glad you can make it. Help yourself. I can finally make it. Hi, I'm Mac.
Maybe look at green.
Okay, that would be a breakfast this morning.
Roscoe, you want lunch? What do you want? Where is parents?
Jarvis in town? Where are you guys watching the kids? Saturday? No, of course. 21st, the night you won.
I think I was probably one of the few people who think the guy decided he was running for years ago.
Oh, that's it, Nino.
It's not even nice.
She always said her check, but then it was just down there.
Then you won't be the first grade when you take one that you don't have. That's the catcher and my American
What were you planning on answering?
It's 35 degrees. I like that hot, humid. Body's really good.
You can wear clothing. I think you were in the
Is it the mint or is it the...
I think it's real.
Oh, so it's the...
It's the good one. Like this is like 50%.
Off the bottom.
There's the bend to go with it.
No, that's all.
I wonder if I was performing Scott.
Look at that. Leader.
Every day.
I got money on it. Yeah, I was going to drive to Hamburg last night to get a recall ticket done and to get to summer stuff. Because I'd taken my mission or handcuffed to cable thing for 2 years. And that's with using the driver down the sliding farther. So I'm driving to Hamburg and slid 50 yards almost back to Petersburg on then got on there and started seeing first half of the year.
Glad we could share our
that's all. Big accidents. And had people sitting there. I was lucky just to get to the dealership. I had to take back way. It was back all the way to you know who was in it? You were right 3+ hours. My little friend was saying, I said the joint could be tied.
You're done.
And Dave Seiler's wife was in it. I saw him downtown. She called him and said, "Can you call someone and ask how?" And he's like, "I got my table." He said, "But I have to go to the bathroom." All we do is she said, "There's some people watching." I said, "You don't know his name?" You don't know anything. Probably. And he said, "Probably there's no leaves."
Even when I kind of did like this 5-kilometer radius, I don't want to because they're over by rescue. It's still not easy. They got an email. Anytime I go, I have no idea. Where I put my house. Sometimes there's even a meal bigger than I do.
You shoved it right on the top there, Ross.
Lead Rogers.
You got an appointment today?
I think if that's the right price.
Don't hold it over my leg.
The last 8 months I really watched.
You guys want to talk over there? I think it's done. You want to give them until 3 days. Trust our just copy of cigarettes.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
I stayed a little bit here. You got a meeting with Kevin?
Where?
Construction will begin in November. Energized
She was being right there.
It'll go to 10 years.
It's like
Well, you know what? I know nothing. What are we doing?
No, but he's gonna fire again. No, he's gonna fire the CEO of Hydro. That's his big brand. We actually ended up having conversations. We're gonna have
Majority of
auto tech.
school or the whole thing.
seminar, and then it's over.
Yeah, we were involved.
I've been over in City Hall.
I did it for 3 months.
He'd want it to be on his own, but he wouldn't easy to put his
Officially open sometime
So where is he
Gotten around and that's the free So we won't be directly involved in facilitating, probably having the autonomous vehicle there from that line.
Because I kind of got the impression that it's going to be really great to pull your own number. You want to back there, well, you know, we can't drive along in your Oh yeah. There's all the building. Go in and do my I think I was up at 5. Well, that was just my game. You know how that is. My night I had 51 crisis.
They're back.
Why? 51 crisis.
So while you finish up your coffee, we'll continue on with a little bit of club business. Starting with birthdays. And Mr. Danbrook, I think you've got one coming up.
Yeah.
Anybody want to hazard a guess?
92.
April 14th. April 14th. And by the way, Ray, did you know what happened exactly 22 years ago yesterday?
He doesn't know what happened yesterday.
It was.
Do I get a bottle of wine for that?
No, you actually, you should. Yeah, here. It wasn't Ruby.
1996, I think, April 10th.
What, April 10th it was for sure, yeah.
What
I can't do the math. No, he has to answer a tougher question. Other birthdays. Laura's not here, is she? Larry had a birthday, and I hope she didn't miss it. And Jack. Where's Jack? Trisha's got a birthday coming up.
We'll be in New York City.
Oh, is that right? Oh.
Which is why I can't go to the board meeting.
And we're not moving it to New York City.
If I have to keep one of you happy.
Nice to know where I stand, Jack. I'm glad I know where I fit in the pecking order. Thanks. And wedding anniversaries, I know Paul and Louise had one.
Yay.
Where did I see Paul?
Thanks, brother.
Right back there.
42 roses.
42 years. Does that sound about right, Paul?
That's exactly right.
Yesterday. 42 years yesterday. Congratulations, Paul. We got some sad news this morning. John Vickery lost his father, Lloyd Robert Vickery. The details are, if you want to know the details about the visitations and the funeral, there, just go to the record. It's in the KW record. And yeah, so it's very sad, and it wouldn't hurt to send John some condolences by email or have a word with them. We have a card up here. If you haven't signed the card, please do so. We'll make sure John gets that, and I'm sure he'll appreciate that. Let's see, what else have we got on club business? I know the grants committee presented a check. Was it the St. Mary's Hospital, John? Grand River Hospital, $7,800 for some neonatal intensive care equipment. Two different things, a bassinet, and then there was something else. Something else? Anyway, very worthwhile cause. Neil, yes, sir.
Just an update on the $500 we donated to
Yes.
the Working Center.
Yes.
That resulted in a $3,000 auction item for dinner at the Working Center, and it was funded by Kitchener Westmount Rotary. So the groceries are being bought by us, and all the work's done. And David Gibson from Perimeter.
Yes, yeah.
He was the successful bidder. He's a very big advocate of what goes on downtown in the community, and spent $3,100 on it.
Wow, fantastic. That's a good investment of our $500. So thanks for arranging that, Neil. Neil sort of put the bug in our ear about that, and it looks like it turned into a pretty good investment for the club. VFL, don't forget to keep selling. May 2nd is the early bird draw. The early bird prize is Iceland's Magical Northern Lights. Does that sound about right? So a big prize this year for the early bird. So keep selling those tickets. International Convention is coming up at the end of June. Just a reminder, we've tried to put together a group of people that are going to rock the historic distillery district on the 23rd, I think it is. A bunch of us have bought tickets to attend that, and if you would like to attend, just go online to the International Convention site and look under Host Organizing Committee Events, and it'll be right there. There were tickets last time I looked, so if you want to join us, by all means, buy your tickets online. Everton, I think you had a couple things you wanted to say.
Yeah, the Rotary Camp Enterprise is coming up May 1st to 3rd, and on Tuesday, May 1st, they have a dinner for the Rotarians with the Camp Enterprise students and Rotaract. So I just like to let you know that if anyone is available to attend, they're hoping to have Rotarians out to mingle and just help explain what Rotary is to the students who are participating. Please let me know. It's May 1st, dinner's at 5:30, 5:38. The cost is $20, so counts for attendance. So just let me know if you're interested or able to attend. Also, we're in the need of a chaperone we need a male Tuesday night and a male and a female Wednesday night to be sure these kids are in their room, wake up in the morning, get them down. So kind of looking from 8 to 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So if you are free and don't have nothing to do May 1st or May 2nd, let me know in the next couple days. We're just trying to get things wrapped up, get everything finalized.
Thanks, Everton. And John Thompson, I believe you have a couple things you'd like to mention.
Thank you.
From the Grants Committee, we just got a thank you today from Breslau Public Schools, so I'll just read a little bit of it. On behalf of Breslau Public Schools, I'd like to thank you for honoring our school with your gift to the Strong Start charitable organization. We recognize it is through the generosity and financial support of donors like you this program is available. It goes on to talk about the Letters, Sounds, and Words program. And in closing, they say we will show our appreciation by displaying your recognition certificate in our main office. And we'll share your generosity with our community as well. Thanks again for making a difference in the lives of our learners. So that's, I think there's a presentation, large check presentation happening next Thursday morning at the school, so that'll be a photo opportunity. Everett, can I just ask a quick question? I know in the past that our club has supported Camp Enterprise with a donation. Is there an expectation for that this year? Our grants committee is meeting next Tuesday. So.
For the four students that the club sponsors.
Okay. Are we aware of that? Like, I'm not aware of that.
I asked Laura if she was aware of it.
All right, so yes. It's done. It's way ahead. Okay, that's good then. Two other things. One, yesterday we had the Athlete of the Year Media Conference. Good turnout. Thanks for several Rotarians being there, including Jerome and Todd.
Jerry.
Oh, Jerry, yeah. Thank you. I knew we were going to bring that up. Yeah. So our president-elect was introduced as Jerry Freiberger, so incoming President Jerry. Anyways, there's an online auction. I'm going to send a link out this afternoon to all our members. A portion of that is going to come back to the Rotary Club of Kitchener-Westmount, I believe, for Polio Plus program. And as well, on your tables today, I've given you an opportunity if you want to take a long shot on a guess at Toronto and Winnipeg and All-Canadian NHL Stanley Cup final. You can enter the pool. Todd, you're in first place, as I mentioned, and Todd is the only one that's entered so far, but he's doing well. So. I'll send that out as well in the same email, and if you want to participate, it should be a bit of fun. So.
Are you able to participate if you don't pick Toronto?
Good money after bad, or whatever way you want to take it. Todd actually had a good suggestion that a theme would be if Winnipeg ever happened to meet Toronto in the final, what a wonderful tribute that would be somehow to Humboldt, like Canadian hockey with the NHL. There's only 2 Canadian teams in, I think, this year, and if they ended up in the final, that could be somebody smarter than all of us. But Todd had the idea, could market that as, you know, the Canadian answer to what happened in the prairies there that was so tragic. So thank you.
Thanks very much, John. Excellent, excellent training. I was going to mention something else. I've got a fancy new jacket up here, and if you look at the front on it, it says "Hockey for Hospice." And I just wanted to mention that I got this thing in my head. The old guys that I play hockey with 3 mornings a week had a tournament last year, and they raised some money for the Canadian Cancer Society. But this year they wanted to spend the money a little more locally, so I sort of put the bug in their ear to, you know, get on board with hospice, and sure enough, they got on board. So we raised $20,000, and some of the guys got together, and I'm hoping I can convince them to do this sort of annually, so it grows. Anyway, a bunch of us got together and sponsored some jackets for the guys for the effort, and I got a jacket out of the deal. So anyway, we're very proud that we were able to raise 20 grand for hospice, and I think you got some other good news. I heard something to do from a particular donor locally that made a huge contribution to the project. So congratulations. Everybody's getting on board, and I'm proud that our club was one of the first to the door. So anyway, great news. Get your, is there any other business that anybody would like to bring up? Nothing? Okay, get your 50-50 tickets out.
Larry, don't have a teller. I like this story.
The first contestant will have ticket number 250. Last 3 digits are 250. Jack Finch. This will supplement his New York trip. $141. That might get you to the airport. Is this Doug's ticket? No, it's not. Yeah, it's how about number, no, I lost track of what that was. That was 250, right? 286. 286? All right.
You're not allowed to win. You're one up
Yeah, that's 286. Oh, no, look at that picture there. He's a crafty guy. He'll do well.
Thought there'd be more marbles in there. It's called take a chance.
So that was 286. 300. 300. Leo. Oh, I got way up high for Leo.
Hey, Leo did greeting duties 2 weeks in a row.
He did. He deserved it.
Leo.
Then you're done.
Basketball player you're not.
Sorry, Leo. Right again. And if you have ticket number 257, you win a copy of Corporate Karma. 257. Clara. No. Corporate Karma. Thanks, Dave, for bringing those in, by the way. There it is. Yep, and your book's right there. I have a copy at home. I haven't started it, but you should take sure it's good read. And Rotary Trivia, since it's VFL season.
Happened 22 years ago. Ray got it.
Yeah, sorry. To the nearest 1,000, what was our net profit from VFL last year?
69,000.
Wrong.
66.
71.
54. 78.
Nope.
65. 57.
75.
High or lower, maybe?
I'm not giving any clues.
67,000.
68.
62.
$1. 64.
61.
This is like 99 bottles.
Sorry, nobody wins the line this week. It was
101.
59. Nobody said 59, right? Or 60?
I said 60. Somebody said 50.
No, did you say 60?
Yeah.
No, I'll give it to you. Who's that, Ray?
That's not 50.
Who Paul?
No.
We'll give it to Paul. Yeah, Paul needs more wine.
You got a place to put it, Paul?
Paul, come on up here, Paul. Grab your bottle.
Do you have any room, Paul?
I
don't think I've got any room in my cellar.
You'll have to build an addition on the cellar now. Just their house is extra bottle. Oh, it's great. Yeah. $10.
Split it.
So it was, we netted 59,000 last year. Just to give you a feel for what goes on with the lottery, our revenues were $108,000 last year, of which about 17,000 were sponsors. So we get sponsors, the names on the tickets and so on. So 91,000 is ticket sales, and then we've got expenses of about 49. Almost all of that is the trips. We have a few minor expenses, basically 49,000. So 59,000 in net profit. So if you do the math, if we sell $91,000 worth of tickets, we've got roughly 50 or so active members. Your target should be to sell about $2,000 worth of tickets. So I don't care how many tickets you sell, I care how much money you generate with your tickets. So shoot for $2,000 and we'll have a very successful year this year. So that's your education on the VFL. Our speaker today is going to be introduced by past President Troy Stubing.
Ross MacKenzie is the Managing Director of the University of Waterloo Center for Automated Research, known as WATCAR. He's responsible for facilitating collaborative research between industry partners and faculty. Ross is on the board of ITS Canada and chairs Electric Mobility Canada's annual student competition. In 2016, he addressed the G7 transport ministers in Japan, summarizing Canada's activities and initiatives in connected and autonomous vehicles. In 2017, Ross was presented with the Ontario Ministry of Transportation Partnership Award, recognizing significant contribution to road safety. Fellow Rotarians, help me in welcoming Ross MacKenzie.
That was good.
Like that?
Okay.
Won't be able to see your thought.
Well, thanks very much. Pleasure to be here. I apologize for the miscommunication, and that was totally on my end that I wasn't here 3 weeks ago. Contrary to what you may have thought, it wasn't because there was an Uber accident 3 days ago. If you're familiar with autonomous vehicles, some of the more out there designs are like the one top left, the little Google clone of a Volkswagen Beetle. That was actually retired a little over a year ago now by Google. Never intended to be built in mass production, but did a lot of work in developing technologies and understanding technologies for Google because it had no pedals and it had no steering wheel. In fact, they built the car, didn't really talk to anybody about it, launched it with a video, and then went to the state of California for a permit to drive it. And the state of California said, you have no braking mechanism and you have no override to steer. You cannot drive that in the state of California. At which point the city of Austin, Texas put their hand up and said, come Come on over to Texas.
We don't mind.
There's no
No
rules.
problem.
We'll just shoot it if it gets
We got
out
lots
of
of
hand.
open space.
Does it have a holster?
Interestingly, you've seen a rapid evolution in the last 3 years. Apple, Magna, and now Google have all publicly stated they're not going to build an autonomous vehicle. They are all focused on building an operating system to make a vehicle drive autonomously, which in and of itself is enough of a daunting challenge, and that's what I'm happy to have the opportunity to speak to you a bit about today. They've come to realize that's a daunting enough challenge on its own without adding the complexity of building the car, constructing the car, which is a lesson that Tesla is learning very rapidly currently as they try and ramp up unsuccessfully to this point production on their Model 3. A year ago, this is what an Uber vehicle in Arizona looked like when it was making a left turn and obviously interacted with the vehicle behind it. That is the same Volvo model that was involved in the Uber incident 3 weeks ago. And then immediately after that, a week later, Tesla had their second fatality of one of their vehicles operating in autopilot mode. And it's very interesting now, you take a look at how the pendulum has not quite swung back because it's still so fresh and so raw, but the incident in Saskatchewan, the tragedy in Saskatchewan, which hit very close to home for me personally. My mother actually went to school in Humboldt, lived just down the road in Lake Lenore. And if the initial indications of why that accident happened proved to be borne out by an assessment of the evidence, it appears that the tractor trailer failed to stop at the stop sign. And that's something that an autonomous vehicle or even a highly automated vehicle would have done. This was an incident right here in the region on Highway 401. Was one of about 2 or maybe 3 that happened in a span of about 10 business days back in October, and closed the 401 for hours, half a day actually. Again, simply because one vehicle failed to anticipate or the vehicle in front stopped too suddenly. There's technology that exists today that you can put into a vehicle that can give the vehicle and the driver a scope of the road and the fact that traffic is slowing or traffic is going to come to a halt. And that just takes political will to put that in place. We're not talking about a fully automated vehicle here, something that can drive autonomously. Just mandate the technology to be used that exists. Shortly after that, last November, you may recall, northbound on Highway 400, we had an inferno. Again, the highway was closed for many hours, and this incident could also have been prevented. This occurred just over a rise in the 400. If you've driven that road, you may be familiar. Before you go down into the Holland Marsh proper, there's a little bit of a rise. And going on the upslope of that rise, traffic was moving. And on the downslope, just over the rise, there had been an accident 2 kilometers up, just at the bottom of the Holland Marsh. And it, in fact, had cleared. And traffic was just beginning to move. But coming over the rise, 3 or 4 transports, one of which had a tanker full of fuel on it, didn't have any indication of that and came over the rise and couldn't stop because they were going at speed, but the traffic ahead of them was way ahead. So just as a little context, to give you some sense of where we are now, and is it true, will automation improve safety? Well, to those examples, you have assisted braking on vehicles now. We've had anti-lock brakes for many years. You push down really hard, you're in an icy or slippery road situation, and that pulsing you feel on the gas pedal, pardon me, the brake pedal, it's just standard equipment. I remember when anti-lock brakes first came out, there was a rush of people averse to new technology to buy new models of vehicles without that. There's a resistance to change. It's human nature. We have assisted braking now that will give you a warning, will invoke brake assist to help the vehicle slow down, and then at the third stage there, labeled as D1, actually invoke the automatic braking to bring the vehicle to a safe stop to prevent a collision. And that's out there now on some higher end models. The space shuttle had about 2 million lines of computer code. Curiosity that went to Mars had just under 5. Your smartphone has anywhere between 18 and 20. And a fighter jet has around 20 million lines of code. Anybody want to hazard a guess of how much code, how many lines are on the vehicles you drove here today in?
65.
Higher.
110.
100 million lines of code is on today's passenger car. And that's not with any degree of automation or full autonomy. It's a complex challenge, and it's not going to happen overnight. Now, there's a significant amount of technology on your vehicle that software either controls or contributes to. Very common elements, degrees of communication between various elements. Cruise control, for example. Some of you are probably familiar or may have driven vehicles with adaptive cruise control, which will actually slow you down as you approach something in your lane that's going slower than you. That's a key building block and not anything revolutionary to creating an autonomous vehicle. Some additional pieces that run off of those 100-odd million lines of code. There's anywhere from 7 to 10 electrical control units and vehicle controllers on your vehicle now that make sure those codes interact and go to the space that they need to have the vehicle perform the tasks of the technology on your vehicles now. But this is what it's going to take to make a vehicle fully autonomous. And I appreciate you can't read all of the small print, but you've got forward-looking cameras in the gray and side view cameras coming out as well to give a full 360 bird's eye view. You've got mapping technology, which is the orange beacons going out. And again, not just a question of where you're going, but what's on the sides. An autonomous vehicle can only operate on a road it's been manually driven down because it makes a map for its own use far beyond what you or I would equate a map to. It notes where the post is that the stop sign is on. It'll pick up where a tree trunk is, where the sewer drain is in proportion or relation to the curb. And it uses all of those as reference points the next time it goes along in autonomous mode to help position itself. So it isn't always dependent on being able to see the lane markings, because not every road has visible enough lane markings that the cameras and various detection pieces on an autonomous vehicle can collect from, rather. So we have some degree of connected vehicles now. Vehicle-to-vehicle communication, or V2V, that adaptive cruise control is a one-way example of that. We also have some degree of communication back to infrastructure, vehicle-to-infrastructure communication. If you go into a left turn lane and there's a sensor embedded in the pavement, that's an example of V2I. So you hear a lot of these terms about communication capabilities fostering autonomous vehicle functionality. Well, a lot of those are established now. It's just a matter of enhancing them and making them even more functional and more powerful. But to get to fully self-driving or autonomous mode, so you can navigate, the vehicle can navigate on its own without any input from you or I, you need to have a combination of devices. You need to have those cameras that are looking out in all directions. You need to have radar systems sending out beacons from your front bumper. You need to have something called a LiDAR system which is a series of laser beams that project out in a fan like this, constantly going around about 50 times a second. There's 32 laser beams, and as it goes along, it hits the floor, and then it hits the table, and then it hits the chair, and then it hits the floor again, and it detects where things are. You add that into the navigation system and GPS positioning, and that's your base elements of what is required for an autonomous vehicle to operate. That's our focus at the university. Our work with our autonomous vehicle has been to develop that autonomous software stack that takes all of those inputs, processes them in real time with a huge computer processing capability in the trunk. It displaces the spare tire to be able to fit in the vehicle, and it makes a decision in real time. So to get from connected where we are now into some degree of automation through to highly automated or fully autonomous vehicles, that's the challenge. And one of the common questions I get asked is, well, when can I have one? My mother, God love her, 80 years old, she asked me 3 years ago. And I was kind of surprised. And I said, you know, would you really want one? She said, well, you know, I've driven enough. I'm fine if somebody else wants to drive, but still she would have the freedom to come and go as she pleased. So you're probably a good 15 to 20 years away if you want a vehicle that'll get you around the region and just stick to an urban deployment. If you want something that's going to get you to the airport in Toronto and go on 400 series highways, arterial roadways, navigate on-ramps and off-ramps, get you in and out of a parking garage, that's 20 plus years out, easily. When we talk about automated driving, there's a 6-level scale that goes from 0 to 5 that you may have heard people talk about level 2 autonomy or level 3 autonomy. And this just gives you a good perspective on what that involves. So no assistance at all is a 0, obviously. Some degree of automation at a level 1, a little more higher at a level 2. The Teslas that operate in autopilot mode, which is the worst branding of anything you could have ever come up with, in my opinion, because it's not autopilot by any stretch of the imagination, that's a level 2 vehicle. We have a level 2 vehicle now that will, on any given day, operate at a level 3, and we'll have a full level 3 operating vehicle by the end of next year. To get to level 4, where there's no driver intervention required or no driver required at all, level 5, that's a little distance into the future.
Question.
Yeah.
The new Cadillac, I think CT6, the one that just came out.
Yes. Yeah.
It has. I see the commercials and it has automated highway driving.
Super Cruise. That's right.
So is that 2 or 3 or 1?
That would be 3. That would be 3. So you still have to be seated in the, pardon me, no, it's kind of like, it's about 2.5, really, to be honest, because it's using high definition maps. I talked earlier about how you have to manually drive an autonomous vehicle down the road. So there is another parallel pursuit of high definition mapping roads in the developed world. And so it uses those high definition maps. So it's at about a 2.5. And that...
so that's hands off, but eyes kind of still on.
Well, the rule is you got to be in the driver's seat and you got to be paying attention. So you can maybe be sipping a coffee, but you can't be reading a book.
I'd be afraid of falling asleep.
That's sleep or just attention is one of the biggest issues. And if any of you actually saw the video that the Tempe police released of the Uber incident, that's a testament to that, because the person who was in the driver's seat, supposed to take control on a moment's notice, was looking down and did not look up until the actual impact.
But they had disabled the Volvo safety systems that would have slammed the brakes on when the pedestrian walked in too.
Well, yes, and now you're getting into a real interesting...
I'm a former Volvo salesman.
One person said versus the other person, because it's not only Volvo that's come out with that, but a couple of the suppliers to that safety system on those advanced vehicles they've all said, our system would have seen that. We ran the video through, and our system detected the pedestrian based on just what the Tempe police had released. Whereas what Uber hasn't said yet is what they had turned off. And you know, they had that suite of sensors and devices on the roof, as well as technology and software in the vehicle. So that's all part of the investigation that's ongoing, and it's obvious that something failed, and everybody has kind of taken a position to distance themselves from that. And not surprisingly, not only Volvo, but Mobileye and the suppliers of their technology. And the following week, the head of Waymo, the Google division that's developing autonomous vehicles, went on record in an interview to say, our vehicle would have detected the pedestrian, and our vehicle would have stopped. And it's a question of the random, unpredictable behavior of all of us. If we had a dedicated infrastructure where I could deploy an autonomous vehicle now, we would have autonomous vehicles today. I was at the World's Expo in 2005 in Japan, and I drove on a fuel cell powered autonomous bus that took us from the entrance gate through an environmentally protected area to the exhibit space that was the expo grounds. But there were no pedestrians accessing that space, and there were no other vehicles on the road. A human operator, unlike a autonomous vehicle, will get in the car and know that they're running late. Like I was to get here because I had a meeting that ran long. And a human operator will look down at the center console to properly grab their coffee cup so that when they get it to their lips, they're not going to pour coffee out the side of it and down their coat. Autonomous vehicles won't do that. In fact, if I had an autonomous vehicle, I would have been a little earlier than I was, because by habit, I came down Weber, turned onto Lancaster, and then, or Frederick rather, and then turned onto Charles, only to have to go 4 blocks down because there's LRT curves now, right? And I wouldn't have taken that route had I known, and the autonomous vehicle from the start wouldn't have taken that route. So this is our vehicle, nicknamed Autonomoose by the graduate students who work on it. Nothing more Canadian than a moose, apparently. And as you can see, there's a series of rather large cameras on the immediate top of the roof rack. There's 8 of them, one pointing out in each direction for the corners and each direction for the sides. And we're doing some advanced work on what we call object detection and perception analysis, so that we not only detect the vehicle, or we detect the pedestrian, or the motorcyclist, or the bicyclist, but we project the path they're going to take. And that's the biggest challenge in all of this, is to do that path planning. So this is what the vehicle sees with that LiDAR unit combined with the radar and the camera. And you can see how it blocks things out. It's blocking out pedestrians, it's blocking out other vehicles. And then from observing them as it comes along, it's able to project and predict a path that they're going to take. This is just the images that LiDAR system sees, those 32 laser beams that go around. This is the point cloud images, it's called. And you can see the streetscape of the building fronts. You can see the lines picked up from the center of the roadway, some light standards, and projecting the path that it's going to go. And that's just one of about 5 inputs that's required to path plan for the vehicle. So how long are we going to take to get there? Well, we're just getting into the second era now, where there's adoption of automated vehicles. Next will come highly automated, and ultimately we'll get into fully autonomous. One of the more immediate things that will be deployed, this is being tested in both the US and Europe, is truck platooning, where you have a human operator in the front vehicle and the other vehicles follow at a safe but no prescribed distance. And you'll get to a certain point and a driver will meet and take the last vehicle off and drive it to reduce costs and improve aerodynamics on the roadway. So our autonomous vehicle fleet consists of the Autonomoose, comparable vehicle, also a Lincoln from Renaissance Electronics in the US. We have a third vehicle with another industry partner, and we have a team in the new Auto Drive Challenge, and that's a Chevrolet Bolt. General Motors has donated to 8 schools that were successful applicants to the challenge, of which we're one of 2 in Canada, the other one being University of Toronto. So we're working with Renaissance. They're kind of like the Intel of automotive grade microprocessors. So we have an Intel chip on which resides the QNX operating system, on which resides our software stack. And all 3 of us have the same vehicle. All 3 of us are combining our efforts along with some other partners, solid state LiDAR tech company, LeddarTech out of Quebec City, Novatel, who does advanced GPS positioning out of Calgary, and Acerta, which is a Waterloo spin-off. Finally, where do we do this? We've only done one on-road public drive. We have a test track in Waterloo. It's the Regions test track. It's the Emergency Services Complex. It's just beyond the new Costco up on Irv Road. And then we have a test track in Stratford as well that's owned by Renaissance. So we test our vehicle first out on the Waterloo Region facility, which has a signalized intersection, lane marking, and is a 1.2 kilometer oval. And at the Renaissance track, it's Renaissance equipment, but it's only our researchers who are doing the work out there. They actually don't have any staff in Canada. We're their main partner in that endeavor. Finally, how are we going to get there? To ultimately achieve that degree of autonomous operation that's safe, it's going to take a collaborative effort. And we have a significant overlap of and interaction between the various partners in industry, government, and academia today, and it's going to only grow in the future so that we ensure we legislate and regulate what we need to without coming at the expense of stifling the innovation that needs to happen in order for autonomous vehicles to be realized. And that's a brief overview, and I thank you for your attention. Happy to take a few questions if time permits.
We've got a few minutes.
Sure.
One of the things you talked about lines, and I've always wondered how it would work when, you know, when there's construction and they put those temporary lines and lanes are shifting.
Yeah.
But also then you have a snowstorm like last Friday. How much of the lines are important, or are these other systems making up for covered, like snow-covered terrain?
Lines are important for systems now.
Right.
Lines are mandatory for Tesla. The fatality that happened 2.5 weeks ago with Tesla was because the line faded, right, and the vehicle didn't have anything to follow, and the operator wasn't paying attention. Lines are optimal and preferred, but redundancies are being built in so that lines are not mandatory. And if you've got cameras that are looking out and LiDAR that's taking an image in addition to the existing high definition map that you've either made or that's been downloaded with that service that's now coming, the lines will complement all of that, but not be mandatory.
If you'll go back to your last slide with your 3, within that industry bubble, you've got automotive and information technology,
yeah,
two traditionally different industries. And one of the interesting observations is that the automotive industry, especially in North America, has shared technology. And so if GM Research is developing a specific technology, especially around safety, they do share it with their competitors. Whereas in the information technology thing, you have a very competitive and
closed shop.
Well, non-sharing kind of environment. You've
right,
got lawsuits every day about patents and all, yeah, the rest of it. So how are you going to get them together, and how are you going to actually be able to share these technologies to make it work?
It's an excellent observation, because that's exactly the situation. And we've had for the last 7 years or more a convergence of technology inside the passenger vehicle. We've had advances in technology, communication capabilities manifesting through or with your smartphone to
go ahead.
Happy trails.
Thank you. He's coming to join you.
Okay. We've had those IT companies learn a few lessons in the last few years. So where they can put something in and it can assimilate with something like Google CarPlay or Android Auto, that's fine. And then they've still got their proprietary pieces off of their phones. But what we've learned, as I opened with, you don't have IT companies now suggesting they're going to build an autonomous vehicle. They've all said, with the exception of Uber and Tesla, well, no, not with the exception of Tesla, because Uber's using Volvos. They've all said, we are going to create an operating system that will work on a vehicle. And Google's efforts are focused on Chrysler Pacificas and Toyota Lexus SUVs at the moment. So that sharing of technology as it relates to the vehicle operating is no longer an issue, because it's just this autonomous system that's going to be installed like you would download and install PowerPoint as opposed to Google Slides, for example, on your computer. It's an oversimplification, but that's the short answer. Do we have time for a couple more? Or do you want to, I can stay after if people want to ask where we at.
I think we could do one more.
Well, I'm curious as to what the value add is in this. Is it more efficient use of infrastructure? Because I don't see much benefit in sitting in the car where I'm not doing anything.
There's several potential benefits. One is you could be working, or you could be resting.
Because we don't work in that.
Two is if the vehicles are all operating autonomously, they can follow closer together. So you can put more vehicles in the same space of roadway. And three is when you get where you're going, the vehicle doesn't need to stay, right? I use my vehicle 1 hour a day, maybe an hour and 15 minutes on an average day. So there's 22, 23 hours of downtime. That's an investment I don't need to have personally, and there's opportunity to deploy that through the day for others to use. And I'm happy to answer a couple other questions after if people still have them, but Brad.
Any other questions that you want to ask right now, or are we?
We're pretty much done.
Okay. I think if we let Roscoe go, he'll stay for a while.
You said he would?
Ross, thanks for coming to our club today. And in appreciation, we've restored the eyesight of a person in the name of Ross MacKenzie.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Ross. Fantastic stuff. A little into the future, but I think we're all learning. It's coming. It's not going to arrive tomorrow. If there is nothing else for the good of Rotary, meeting adjourned.